Welcome to the Be Bold podcast. I'm Beth Whitman. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. This is where I feature conversations with women who have inspirational stories to share. These are women who are on the cutting edge. They are kicking butt in major ways and forging their own paths to success. They come from a wide range of backgrounds and find themselves in an equally wide range of stages in their lives. The one thread they have is that they are bold in what they do. They follow what they love, and somehow they create a lifestyle that supports it. It's when we hear stories about other people's successes and triumph over obstacles that we become inspired. And really, it makes us feel like anything is possible. I believe we all have the ability to become better versions of ourselves. And what I'm hoping is that you'll find pearls of wisdom in these conversations, just bits of information that inspire and motivate you. I'm hoping you'll hear something that makes you want to change and make choices in your life that ultimately makes you happier and more fulfilled. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play and leave a review. That is so critical to building our Be Bold community, and I would actually really appreciate it. With that said, I can tell you that you're going to want to grab a pen and paper for this episode because it's packed with information and ideas on how to up your game and live a healthier life. I've included a lot of information in the show notes, but you may find specific suggestions that pertain to you that you'll want to jot down. This conversation is with Dr. Robyn Benson. She's a Doctor of Oriental Medicine, and she's got a practice in Santa Fe. Her clinic is called Santa Fe Soul, and she practices what she calls Amplified Regenerative Therapies. And we'll get into the specifics of that in this conversation. There are a few things that struck me about Robyn. First, she's full of energy, and I mean full of energy. We had emailed a few times while I was still planning my visit to Santa Fe, and she was so enthusiastic about wanting to speak to me and record this podcast. And I realized as we were recording that her enthusiasm was because she's so passionate about what she does. And she's just eager to share, and really, she just wants people to get on board and create a healthier, more vibrant life for themselves. She sees the possibilities in us all. And what I observed is that she has no doubts about what her life's purpose is. Some of what she does at Santa Fe Soul includes cutting-edge technologies, and I'm going to guess that some of what she talks about will be new to many of you. But the results from these therapies are based on scientific research, and they include everything from acupuncture to herbs and IV drips to light and sound therapies. At Santa Fe Soul, they treat a wide range of health issues, including addiction, fatigue, chronic health issues, sleep disorders, Lyme disease, and they even help people detox. And that's just some of what they do. People who visit the center go for one-off treatments such as Meyer drips, which gives their immune system a boost. And they have people who take part in month-long programs to treat more serious issues such as addiction. After we recorded, I had the chance to experience their Tesla lights. These are high-frequency lights meant to recharge your body. And what happened was I laid flat on a bed in a dark room, and there were these Tesla lights near my feet and my head, and another light nearby that changed color, and I'm honestly not sure the purpose of that. There was oxygen that was then pumped in right near my face. And what I did was I took the opportunity to meditate and to breathe in as deeply as I could. And I can tell you that after 10, 15 minutes in that, I really did feel quite relaxed. You might not be as lucky as I was to stop into Santa Fe Soul for a treatment. And you may not live in an area that has these sorts of services, but really there are so many tips and so much information in this conversation that you can incorporate at home to feel better in pretty quick order. So give a really good listen to this. With that, let's go to our conversation with Dr. Robyn Benson. Robyn, thank you so much for having me at your wonderful practice today. I really appreciate your time, and I'm so excited to chat with you because I'm interested in the topic, but I'm also relatively ignorant about it, which might be a good thing. So welcome. So first, would you tell me a little bit about your practice and what you do here?
Okay. So I've been in practice. I'm in my 25th year, which is hard to believe. That's something that came came easy to me is knowing my career from a very young age. Gosh, I think when I was 5 years old, I knew I wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't know that I'd want to be a doctor of Oriental Medicine. So 25 years later, probably the biggest thing that happened midway was building this center. There was an inspiration that actually happened when I was a freshman in college. I just thought, I'm going to build a health center someday. And I really did it, but I was too scared to do it for all those years. I just thought, oh my gosh, I had children, young children, and all I could think about was how difficult it would be.
Was that here in Santa Fe?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, so we built it here, 12, I guess we're in our 12th year actually. But so it's been quite a journey. So what I am mostly interested in have been is sports medicine. That was what I got into early on in college. But pretty much my whole career, I treat a little bit of everything, but I also love women's health. So you name it, from fertility to helping women with hormonal issues. I'm big into youthful aging, like helping all women and men for that matter. But how can we stay healthy? How do we sustain optimal health throughout life? And that's what was my inspiration also for putting on this couple-year self-care revolution. And it's still one of my most important messages.
Let's go. Well, first talk about the types of therapies that you do here.
Okay.
I'd like the listeners to get a big picture because you do a lot of things here. And I would like people, we'll get into some of the details later, but just give us some kind of broad strokes about what you're doing here.
Okay. So primarily acupuncture, and we have massage, and we've had chiropractic. But in my own particular practice, I offer amplified regenerative therapies. So I also do lots of nutrient vitamin therapies. Some of the very well-known ones are Myers cocktails. And I do vitamin C drips, and I also work with ozone in medicine. So I do something called the ultraviolet blood irradiation treatment, which is really good for people with chronic illness, acute infections. A lot of people that are just want to up their, athletes that want to feel better and stronger and repair better from high exertion come to see us for those therapies.
So you called it Amplified Regenerative Therapy.
Right.
Is that your term?
Yes, that's kind of my brand. It's called Art with Dr. Robyn Benson at Santa Fe Soul Center for Optimal Health. Yes.
So define that.
Okay. Amplified. This is a time where most people, I would say, are feeling wired and tired. Without a doubt, I check people's pulses, so I can definitely say that's true. And people are feeling, overwhelmed and not feeling, what's the word? I mean, a lot of people feel so darn fatigued. They wake up in the morning tired and go to bed really tired. So to amplify one's health, like how to feel bigger, more magnetic, how do you, more excited about your day-to-day life and living more your passion and your dreams. So our therapies are really about regenerating healthy tissues on a cellular level, right? Rather than degenerating. I mean, you have kids that out there, that I'm treating now, 15, 18. I mean, they're already coming in with autoimmune diseases and chronic infections. And so there's a degenerative process going on while they're still so young, right? We're always regenerating. We're always breaking down. But what we're seeing is that there's just so much toxicity in the world that people are feeling challenged health-wise. So we're offering ways to regenerate.
So, and people don't even know that, do they?
No.
They have no idea.
No.
And I remember just years ago, hearing or reading things about, toxicity levels, whether it's pesticides. I mean, one that people, I think, hear about most are pesticides in fruits and vegetables, like eat organic. But I would hear about, just unhealthy limits of air quality. And you hear about those things, but I just don't think people believe it or realize the effect on their health.
Oh, indoor pollution too is terrible. Not only electromagnetic pollution, I talk about that a lot on all kinds of interviews. That's kind of one of my areas of expertise that I really want to educate the world.
Give us an example of that.
Okay, so Wi-Fi. That's on in most people's homes 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Cell phones, all the cell towers that are within 1, 2, 3, or 4 miles away from where we live is affecting us. I mean, these are frequencies that we can't see them, smell them, or taste them, but they do, in fact. thousands of studies showing the hazardous effects of electromagnetic pollution. Again, these are artificial frequencies that we are not designed for. The best way to share this, where people can really understand, is I often have a Gauss meter so you can actually hear what's coming out of your laptop, what's coming out of halogen lights, what's coming out of every outlet in your home. And these are frequencies, again, that are very, very high. Our cellular bodies are designed for 0.5 to about 25 hertz, maybe up to 50 hertz. So that's called the Schumann resonance. Have you ever heard of that, Beth?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's just that healthy frequency that we feel most like when we're outside walking barefoot on the beach.
Okay.
I mean, that's that healthy field that turns on that biological field of our body, gets our chemistry and our biological fields working optimally. But when cell phones are about 900 megahertz, and then Wi-Fi is about 2.2 gigahertz. So just to show you that vast difference in terms of what's best for our bodies to function and what we're being exposed to 24/7.
So how do you convince someone, because I'm with you on that. Like although I do it, I do think it's bad to hold a cell phone to your head and speak, but then Bluetooth is bad for you also. So kind of where do you draw the line? Do you go back to a landline? I don't know.
You're right.
But how? Right. So how?
A landline, not a portable phone.
Yeah.
Those are the worst. Yeah.
So, but how do you? I don't know. Where do you draw the line, and how do you convince people that this stuff is bad for them so that they minimize that exposure?
Wow. Well, usually it takes people having some type of health crisis, or a third of the world is not sleeping. A third of the world is depressed, wired, and tired, right? And there's so much disease. It's just another factor that's affecting people. This wired, this anxiousness, sleeplessness. When we're in these fields, it keeps you overamped all the time. And so it's also a big contributing factor to this diabetes and obesity epidemic because it's keeping your blood sugar levels elevated.
No kidding.
Yes. I've studied with, and some of my great colleagues are experts in this field. Magda Havis from Canada happens to be one of them. And she, at Trent University, she's doing scientific studies on a day-to-day basis and showing places like in Paris and other countries around the world where they're actually taking Wi-Fi out of schools because they're seeing that it's disturbing children's, not only their metabolism, but their sleep, and they're gaining weight and just feeling anxious all the time. So when I work with a patient that's coming in, if they've never heard of this before, like I'll give you an example. A 38-year-old woman came in, mother of 3 young children. She had been to 8 specialists. She had headaches. She had palpitations. She just thought that she was literally going crazy and so scared for her life and for her children, for that matter. And I asked her, I gave her a couple of treatments, and I said, well, tell me about your, how do you sleep at night? Like, what's going on in your bedroom? Do you have much plugged in? And she said, oh my God, my husband and I each have a clock radio. She had an HD TV, which emits a lot of radiation. They plugged in their computers. They had exercise equipment. You can imagine, again, with their sophisticated technology, you can actually measure, you can hear what's actually
the buzz.
The buzz. It's like this incessant buzz, and it's not. Again, we need the parasympathetic. Our nervous system. We have the go, the sympathetic, and then we also need that really important component, the digest and rest. In terms of regenerating healthy cells, we really need that deep sleep. So the more that you're able to make a total free zone of any type of electromagnetic pollution, even turn off the electric circuit to your bedroom so you can just get that deep restorative rest.
How many hours a night do you recommend for folks?
I'd say 7 to 9 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did this woman then get rid of everything?
So it was amazing. She had a cell tower right behind her house. She didn't know what that was. She turned everything off. It took her about 3 weeks, but it was life-changing. She had no idea how much that was impacting her. There's a lot of studies about how it's affecting your hormones. And And then also the ADD and epidemic of ADD and ADHD, all of that there's a strong correlation with electromagnetic pollution and all that. So there are a couple books, for all of you that are listening. Louise Gittleman wrote a book called Zapped. Jerry Tennant, a medical doctor, wrote a book called Dirty Electricity. Or was it called, he wrote a book called Healing is Voltage. And so we think about our bodies when we're feeling healthy, we have good voltage. We our body is one big healthy battery, right? With lots of light. Like there's an amplification of goodness going on in your body. And for so many of the people that are just feeling like they're dragging through their days, not feeling really good, headaches, any type of, body aches, chronic pain, everything is related to very much how you're sleeping, how well you're hydrating. Yeah, this is something that people should, if they've never consider that this could be a root cause of some of the health issues you're experiencing.
Why don't you think that this is talked about more, like in the news or just even with medical doctors?
It's happening. It's getting there.
Is it?
It is. I mean, especially in my world of health practitioners. I mean, I would say we're all talking about it, because if you're working with patients and they're not getting better, you look at the indoor pollution. It's way worse, 200 times worse indoors than it is outdoors. So that's not only the detergents that we're washing our clothes with and washing our dishes with, the rugs and the formaldehyde and some of the furniture that we have. It's just one little toxic mess. So we need to air out our homes as often as possible. Sleep with a window, even in the winter. Just a little bit of fresh air is way, way better.
Mm-hmm. I've read some studies myself about it, and when I talk about it to people and I say, cell phones are terrible for you, you shouldn't be using them, there's studies, people look at me like I'm crazy, like I'm a conspiracy theorist. And so, and I do believe it. I
you
hear
are
you
so
on that.
Right on. I mean, I talked to a radiologist recently, and I think Louise Gittleman talked about it certainly in her book, but there's been like a 25% increase in brain cancer just in the last 5 to 10 years. And she is a health writer, and she got a parotid tumor on the side of, and she travels all the time. She always had that cell phone in her ear, like hours and hours a day. So many people don't realize it. I mean, they can feel the heat, but it's thermogenic. Mm-hmm. It is radiating. It is putting this heat is definitely going into your brain. So I have 2 teenagers. I mean, they mostly text, thankfully. I asked that that's definitely more common among
that's a
teenagers.
good alternative. I hadn't thought of that.
Texting is the best for all of us. And then having, using your phone when you can, put it on speakerphone. Proximity really matters. Like, I have asked all my people and friends even, like, don't ever plug a cell phone near your head at night. You will get that radiation. Absolutely. But if it's 3 feet as opposed to 6 feet, 6 feet is better than 3 feet if you absolutely have to have it in your room at night. But it's better not to. Great.
You've given me good reason to keep it out of the bedroom completely. I think that's a great idea. And I just unplugged my alarm clock too, which I've had forever. So I've just gotten rid of that. So
I want to recommend one more resource, and it's a documentary film called Full Signal that came out probably about 5 years ago. This gentleman, he traveled to like 7 different countries, and I mean, this is not just in the United States. It's even Sweden and Norway, some of those countries too, where the production of cell phones. I mean, there are people that have such severe sensitivity to electromagnetic pollution that they're essentially wearing astronaut outfits. That's kind of where we're heading, because people, again, you don't feel good. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And you don't know why.
Yeah. I have a personal story that this is why this has been such a big part of my message. And it's the first chapter of my book. I wrote a book on travel and health. And my first chapter is called, Are You a Frequency Traveler? So for people to really understand as we travel healthfully through life, we want to travel in the best possible frequencies. When you're at 30,000, 40,000 feet in the air, that is one of the most unhealthy places to be for a human being to be at any given time. So so that's just educating the world on knowing that we're energetic beings. We're more biologically identical to the earth than anything else. So what's good for the earth is good for our body and vice versa. A plant-based diet. I definitely am a big advocate of that, even though I'm more of a paleo in my food choices. I think that that's just a really huge message that's part of living amplified.
I want to talk more about the travel, but I have a question for you since we're going down this path. Do you go through the machines at the airport, the new ones?
I choose pat downs.
Oh, yay.
90% of the time.
Yeah.
I really do.
That's another area where I write a lot about it on my blog, and I encourage people in my social media network to do the pat downs, to opt out. And again, I get this kind of look like I'm a conspiracy theorist. And the TSA folks are like, why are you opting out? And I'm like, dude, you're standing in front of this all day long. It cannot be good for you.
It's not good.
It's
definitely not good. And they rotate those TSA people through different parts of that job. So if they're on the screen no more than 30 minutes. I learned so much when I researched for my book. I have talked to so many of those TSA agents. I've learned of all, in the whole travel industry, give them a little extra TLC because it's a tough job.
Oh, they don't
get paid very well.
No.
And also all the people that are kind of navigating the skies, I mean, that equipment that they're in front of, that is... mostly people do not survive in that job after their mid 50s. Just being around that kind of technology all the time, there's a high rates of cancer among pilots and flight attendants for that reason. But that radiation, there's good radiation and there's bad radiation,
and that is bad.
Yes, it's bad.
But you've got this successful practice here in Santa Fe. And you said you just celebrated your
12th birthday here.
12th
yes.
birthday. Congratulations on that. And that you're doing very much cutting edge work. Did you start at year one? Were you doing cutting edge work, or have you kind of grown into that over the years?
It's very interesting. I started studying Chinese medicine when I was 23. I'm now almost 52. So for some reason, I've just been kind of like a geek girl when it comes to health technologies, whether it was microcurrent way back then or working with any type of electroacupuncture. But over the last 25 years, I've accumulated a lot of amazing health technology, some of the best in the world, cold laser. We also work with pulse electromagnetic field technology. So I have devices that are anywhere between $5,000 to $25,000. And so what that essentially does
dollars,
is
you mean?
$25,000,
yes.
For
the machine.
Right. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at, in all of these cases, most of these technologies are ways to amplify how we're producing ATP in our cells. How are we detoxing more efficiently?
What's
ATP is adenosine triphosphate. So our mitochondria, that's the powerhouse of our cells where we produce energy. And because, again, of what we've already talked about, the toxicity issues, the water, the food quality being so poor, our systems, the voltage is very low. So these are technologies that really help to amplify healthy energy production in the cells and detoxification. We have a room devoted to what we call the brain optimization and body regeneration program. So we have maybe 15, 20 different technologies in there. And really what we're doing right now is we're working with people one-on-one, whether it's they have PTSD, they have an opiate or an alcohol addiction, they have the bipolar, beginning stages, dementia, Alzheimer's, and we're putting them through this 28-day program to help create neural pathways, because you may have heard of neuroplasticity. Mm-hmm. So it's really tough to a totally, somebody who's been already further along in the disease process.
But you're literally trying to rewire their brain.
We are. And for traumatic brain injuries, for TBIs, there's amazing things that we can do in that room for people. And so it's not just working with technologies. There's 3 or 4 that we use primarily, which is the theta chamber that you just saw. That's pretty awesome. What is really cool about that technology is there's 6 different. So you're stacking like 6 different technologies in one thing. So it has
into the one chamber.
Into the one chamber, and it has vestibular motion. So for people that have had any type of trauma, or for addictions for that matter, the vestibular motion really helps to get people into a different state. Like a lot of us are living in that beta brainwave state most of our lives, or beta alpha, not getting much theta or delta, which is that deeper state of relaxation. That's our creativity. That's also where we regenerate healthy cells in our body. So the vestibular motion really helps people kind of get out of their 3D life. And then we add oxygen therapy, cranial electrostimulation, which we're giving them certain frequencies based on the indication that they're being treated for. And then we also do sound binaural beats and light therapy. And the light that they're getting too is based on if they're being treated for a bipolar, or when I get in there, it's always hormones, sleep, and what's the other? Just relaxation.
And is this all at the same time, or do you go in and you have one?
It's all at the same time. Mm-hmm. And people go in there for 30 minutes. And there's a lot of research that has been done over the last 40 years, and I'm friends with the inventor of this device. And then we also add something called rapid transient magnetic stimulation. And that's really good also for depression and anxiety and creating these new neural pathways. And it's a very integrated program, so diet's really essential. And we put them on our BOSS diet. We call it which is really about the message of getting people back to, once again, a plant-based diet. And we have BOSS approved. Yeah. The BOSS stands for the Body Optimization System Studio. So we have people that use that room, the BOSS, and that are just part of our monthly BOSS membership.
So when people come in for a 28-day program, they're not here all day. They might come in for 30 minutes a day?
Pretty much 2 hours.
Okay.
And it's Saturdays and Sundays too.
Is there a therapist here to then help them through that process?
We always have somebody here, yeah.
That sounds pretty radical, like for somebody to come in, like you mentioned, bipolar, or somebody with PTSD.
Yeah.
That's
so pretty much Dr. Christie and I are the two main people overlooking these patients as they go through this. And then we do have a therapist as well that works with them. And then we have my clinical assistant. So we have a pretty stellar staff. And when you think about what other options are there out there, like methadone for heroin addiction, people with eating disorders, people with alcohol issues, an outpatient facility, they are available, but a lot of times they're like $30,000 a month, and a lot of people can't afford that. We're pretty reasonable, about $350 per day.
Well, I asked earlier, when you first started out, these were not available to you, were they? You were probably doing acupuncture.
That's right. I was doing acupuncture, electric acupuncture, and microcurrent, and a little bit of cranial electrostimulation. Those were the main things. And then I got into some copper rods. These, I'm trying to think of the name of the inventor of those. But working with different, mostly frequency medicine, because we're energetic beings. So working with light therapies and working with saunas, infrared saunas too, for detoxing mercury and lead and cadmium, all kinds of crap all out of our bodies.
Do you have a sauna here?
We do. Oh, okay. So in that same room, we have one. It's called the Photon Genius, but now I think they've renamed it, called the Super Sauna. And what's really great is it's open. It's the best of infrared sauna and Royal Raymond Rife. You probably heard of him. He was like the genius behind light frequencies. And so these noble gases go through these pipes along with the infrared sauna. So you're getting the best of both worlds in one place. So when you think about Lyme, we treat a lot of people with Lyme disease.
Are they from this area, or are they flying in?
From all
Lyme?
over.
Okay.
From all over. But yeah, Lyme is everywhere. It's everywhere. What
is your typical client? And where are they coming from?
Well, mostly we treat the Santa Fe, Albuquerque area, I would say. But because I'm on so many podcasts, I have a lot of people coming for this regenerative medicine that I practice. Prolozones are really popular.
Could you explain prolozones?
Sure. So prolozone, again, is another use of ozone in medicine. I can't even tell you. I guess I've been doing this for about almost 15 years, where I inject knees, backs, hips, for herniated discs, ankles, plantar fasciitis, with a substance that has procaine in it and a little bit of ocean water for minerals, a little bit of B12. So I inject that first. That's a proliferative agent followed by the ozone gas. And what it does, so let's say in the knee, if somebody has an MCL, even a full MCL tear, or just a knee instability or crepitus in the knee, or just, sometimes they haven't done all the diagnostics. They just are like, I can't run anymore, or I can't do my kettlebell workout. So I inject the area that's painful, or just doing my tests, I can figure out kind of what's the main problem, and then I inject locally the substance first, followed by the ozone gas, about 10 cc's of the gas, and immediately you can see this under ultrasound. If you can find the loose or overstretched ligament, it goes right back to its nature. So it's cool because it's totally natural. I mean, there's hardly any downtime, for 24 to 72 hours, like take it easy, but there is absolutely no, like when you do cortisone injections, you can only get 2 or 3 of those a year because it's eventually going to cause bone erosion or other issues in the body. So
is this eliminating the need for surgery then?
Very often. If I can get people early enough, I'd say, honestly, I'm so excited about it because I'd say about 80% people get improvement. If not totally, like one injection into their knee and they're completely back doing what they want to do. And there's others, I don't set them up for that. I mean, I like it if that always happened, but very often I like every 10 days or every 2 weeks, come to get your second shots, 1 or 2 or 3 sometimes, depending on the problem. And it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's really about helping our bodies get back to its nature to heal itself, because essentially we are designed to heal.
Can it be used as a preventive measure? Do you have
Sure.
people using that?
Yeah, I mean, just when people just know that they, like for someone like me, I ran marathons for over 30 years. I'm lucky. I have not had any surgeries. I'm really lucky, but
you've retired from that.
I have at 47. I ran a marathon in Prague. It was always my dream to run an international marathon. And I think, I started at 15 and then I had babies and I was running marathons. I got pretty burnt out. I think
it wasn't your body breaking down necessarily. No. It was just
it wasn't structural as it was more endocrine, like definitely more adrenal depletion, not sleeping, not recovering as well. So I think I stopped when I needed to. And then unfortunately, I mean, you being a new runner.
Yeah, relatively new.
I'm about to say I love it. I had to find something else that would give me that satisfaction. I just like, how will I ever not be able to run, right? And I still do, but I do high intensity interval training. I don't run more than 10 or 15 minutes. Before, I could never run less. I wasn't running if I didn't run 45 minutes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah. I went from being bored to death with 3 miles to now being like frustrated if I can't do 8 miles.
Right,
like really having to kind of rein it in. In terms of your practice, where did you study?
My undergraduate degree, I got a BS in sports medicine from the University of Virginia. And little did I know when I was there, that I would be living in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Hamilton, New York, where Colgate University is. And I'm a daughter of a swim coach who made it to the Olympic trial. So exercise was really instilled as just part of my being. So when I moved to Santa Fe, I had that degree, the BS in sports medicine. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with this? And I thought about becoming an exercise physiologist. I thought about becoming a medical doctor, but I was always into natural medicine, from early on. And so I was really fortunate one of my first jobs was working with a physical therapist as an assistant, thinking maybe I want to become a physical therapist. And she had just become a Doctor of Oriental Medicine. So I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. So I got a treatment. And then literally within a couple months, I'm starting acupuncture school.
How old were you then?
I was 23. Yeah.
Was there anything in your family that kind of geared you toward a healthier, like more naturopathic path? Because most people in the U.S. grow up, especially in rural communities, not exposed to that and just go to the doctor, take your medications. But you had a leaning toward that early on.
I'll tell you what happened. So Hamilton, New York is very rural, and there's a great college town, but more cows than people, I'll say. And so meat and potatoes is how I grew up. And I wouldn't say tons of junk food, but we were not oriented towards all health either. But I lost a brother. He was the fifth of 5 children, and I was only 5 when he died. But he was born with congenital issues and brain damage and all kinds of things. But that was a turning point for me where I really saw how that dramatically affect the quality of life in our family. My parents went downhill. It was a really horrible time. My mom.
So this happened when you were 5?
I was 5 when he actually died. So he only lived for 6 months.
Oh, gosh.
That was just a turning point in my parents' marriage. And even though they lasted 18 years.
So they had their own issues because of his death.
I think it was very difficult. It was a very, very difficult thing for them to go through that after having 4 normal children. Then she had another child. Anyway, it's a long story, but for me, that imprint of an unhealthy child and someone dying so young was life-changing for me. And then when I was in 5th grade, we all got to do a career day, and I got my number one choice, which was to spend the day with a doctor. And we spent the first half of the day going to 2 nursing homes. So he was a gerontologist, internal medicine doctor. In a town like that, you're kind of everything, right? And then he was an ER doc. So I got to experience his life, right? So we went to 2 nursing homes, and I was like, oh my God. So here I'm thinking this is like this great noble profession. And I thought, if this is what being a doctor is, I'm not in. I'm not going to do it. Like So going to the nursing home, I'll just never stop too. Going in there, I thought, oh my God, the smell of that place and looking at all these people and noticing that a lot of them were kind of young. And I would ask this doctor, like, why is somebody here? Like, doesn't even have gray hair. Why are they here? And he's like, this is in the 70s, right? Even then, he said, some people make just really bad choices. Act just bad food, not exercising, and that's why they're here. And then we went to the ER, and I thought, oh my God, I think I want to be in emergency medicine either. So I want to help healthy people stay healthy.
Get healthier.
And it's kind of what I've done for 25 years. So when you asked about the ideal client, we get a lot of very healthy people that there might still be some mysterious something going on. Like, I just don't feel good when I wake up in the morning, or I just can't figure out this SI pain that I'm having, or I've got this overgrowth of yeast in my gut and I have a perfectly healthy diet and I still have that issue. And then I might send them off to find out if they have parasites, whatever.
Do you start with the diet?
With all my testing, with all that I do here, I think it's always brought up in just about every treatment. But then there are people who come just for pain. I mean, acupuncture and pain goes well together, but we're very integrative, so we want to address diet.
When I think about a supplement, and I take plenty of supplements, but when I think about something and I think, oh gosh, that would be a great thing that will help me with X, and I think, you know what else would help me with X, Beth? A bigger salad, just a healthier diet, and maybe not that fig bar or some kind of processed food that I have. So I always go to that first, personally, just because I always just think that so much of it can come down to diet and exercise, and like you said, hydration as well. But
I think in my book, and I researched a lot, and plus I must spend an hour or two just researching, studying every day, or just keeping up with all the latest, greatest in health. But I would have to go as far, and I think I did say this in my book, but I think it's 80% of the solution for most chronic and acute issues have to do with food. Even if you're repairing from like a knee replacement, what are you doing to optimize oxygen utilization throughout your whole body, so you don't have as much scar tissue, so you don't need to be on the meds as long. So there's ways to optimize pre and post surgery.
Well, if you're in the hospital and you're eating hospital food or McDonald's that's down on the next
crappy.
level, then it's really hard to get healthy when that stuff is around constantly.
Exactly.
It's really difficult. Well, before I jump to some travel stuff, I've got so many questions for you, but you had mentioned earlier the Myers cocktail, and I know you also do vitamin C drips here as well. And what I'm wondering is, how do you, I understand the value of much of what you do. I think some people would have a difficult time justifying the cost of it. So can you first just talk about maybe what a Myers cocktail costs to come in, exactly what it is, and then maybe a vitamin C drip and the cost of that?
Okay, I will. Remind me to get back to the 80% I was mentioning.
Yeah.
Of that of all disease has to do with food. With food choices. Just before we jump to the Myers cocktail, I just want to just say this because I think it's so important. This is my observation, after treating over 100,000 people in 25 years. I think even more important is how people deal with their emotions and deal with traumas. We all deal with trauma at some point in our lives, birth trauma too. That so when you get those really, really healthy people and how do they get cancer? Is it genetics? Is it, to me, where I'm getting with this, I think one of the most important messages to live amplified in today's world is to become very resilient and not to allow that whirlwind of crap to stay festering, where you're repeating patterns and beliefs that are no longer serving you, and they just wear you down. They cause acidity in our bodies, as you know, right? The acidity, that is degeneration.
Are you a meditator?
I'm more of a movement meditator, and I'm so grateful that that's an okay way to meditate because
Meaning energy, like yoga?
I tend to like a more movement of sorts, whether it's walking, meditation. I tend to, my energetics are not great for just sitting for 15 or 20 minutes. I'm better than I used to be, but it's just my nature.
Then how do you suggest people get to that place where they're not spinning in their head?
So breathing, proper breathing. I really believe in taking 3 or 4 minute breaks throughout the day. Just people who get up and move in the morning. The days like today, I got up at 5:10. I got to my kettlebell class, and it's a 50-minute class, and I think that's way too long. So I go for 25 minutes, and they still allow me to go to class because I think it's too long, right? So it just sets me up for the day. And I showed you my Tesla lights. Those Tesla lights are awesome. So I just did a 10-minute. That was a meditation, so to speak, but I'd like it to be getting something with. If I'm going to be doing a meditation, I want to be at some type of movement.
You're not sitting in front of a candle. There's something else that's going on with a deep breath.
Right. So I think that's really important. And I'm really into how you start your day and how you end your day. So I'm into rituals. So
tell me about it, because I wanted to ask you, tell me about your morning and or your evening ritual, and you've got one for both.
Right. I'll start with how I start my day, and I have an acronym for everyone who's listening. Let's see if I can remember it. So S, stretch and connect. S means stretch. What do animals do, right? They never just jump out of bed. They're just they stretch before they get up. So stretch and connect, just to stretch and just touch yourself and remember who you are before you start this crazy life that most of us do. And then the T stands for self-talk, some affirmations, I'm going to have a great day today, or I love myself, or I'm here to do good in the world today, or I'm excited for life. Just putting those positive thoughts rather than, oh my God, I've got to do 10 things. I don't know how I'm going to get through my day. Most of us wake up kind of alarmed, oh my gosh.
Well, we wake up to an alarm.
To an alarm,
think of that,
exactly.
The word
alarmed and to an alarm, yes. And then the A stands for, this is more for adults, but 3 action steps. I always have only 50 Post-it notes all around. I've gotten down to maybe 10. But what are the 3 things that you just sit there while you're still lie there in bed and think, what do I want to accomplish by the time I go to bed? What are those 3 things? It could be a call that you've been putting off for a long time. For me, it was for my own podcast, I'm doing a new one, and I just want this kind of well-known guy. I want him to be to do the sound for it. You know, it only took me 5 days. I'm like, I'm going to get that done because that's taking energy by not doing it. Okay, so R is for rest and relaxation. So therefore, like, what am I going to do? Like, even after doing my kettlebell class by 10 o'clock this morning, I've already done 10 minutes in the Tesla lights. That to me is restorative. It is also just helping create a healthy, clear field around my body, getting all that dirty electricity out so I can, thrive today. So whatever it takes, just stopping, pausing. Sometimes it's walking around this building, whatever it is, because from start to finish, it's just, I'm on. And then the T stands for touch. Who do I want to touch? So sometimes it might be, a patient, or it might be not literally touch, but I want to make an impact in someone's life today. It might be just, remembering to like thank the person, like thank somebody who did something for me yesterday, just remembering to be grateful. But that's a way of reaching out, or knowing that somebody's not well or has been overwhelmed, just picking up the phone and calling, just not remembering the personal touch in everyday life, no matter how busy I am, not to remember how important that is to reach out to people.
So you get up and you have your start.
That's my start, yeah.
You do your kettlebells.
I do my kettlebells.
What else?
Only 2 or 3 days a week.
Okay, the kettlebells.
Yes. And I'm bringing in hydration with lemon. That's what I'm doing right now.
Oh, good.
Like whether it's lemon oil or an organic, it has to be organic lemon juice, because that helps to set up a healthy voltage in your cells. You need that good water to get your electrical nature of your body working.
Coffee, tea?
I tend to do a Swiss water processed decaf coffee. And as you know, I love my 85% dark chocolate.
So I hear.
I don't know anyone else who starts their day like that almost every day, but I like that sweetness. But it does not make me like, if you have the wrong sugar, you're just like hungry in 10 minutes, right? I mean, I never feel hungry.
So
ever.
what, maybe have 100 calories or so of a dark chocolate, or 50?
Usually just a little
50,
square.
Yeah.
I never have to limit it myself because I don't find it all that, it's not addictive whatsoever. And then when I make the time, I'll have a healthy shake, like a protein shake. I'm really big on not many fruits. I think we overdo. People like this one guy, he comes in and he says, I had pineapples and strawberries and mangoes and a couple greens, no protein. I like a pea-based protein to add to get some of those amino acids. So I do that a lot as well.
So that's your morning. Is there anything else added to that works for you?
I take my supplements. That's when I take my thyroid medication. I take my iodine in the morning. What else do I have? I take selenium. This is all the stuff that I can take basically on a empty stomach. I want to mention something else that I take, and there's so much great research coming out on this, is lithium. L-izyme. Lithium. It just happens to be the name of the company, L-izyme, but most of us are deficient in lithium. So again, this is when you think about the epidemic of people being wired and tired and just kind of stressed. It's a mineral that we're just not getting enough of in our diet. So because I know I travel a lot, I speak a lot, I have a lot going on in my life, it just is just something nice.
Does it calm us down?
It's calming, but it's also allows more resiliency in everyday life. I've always had, I'm way better with my sleep, but that's always been, I'm just not my best thing. That's always, if something's going to go, it'll be my sleep. Not my exercise program, but the sleep, it just can be hit or miss. I'm very, very sensitive. Again, I can't get my husband to turn off the Wi-Fi every day, and I'm very sensitive to that. I just want to I love that we're jumping around, and I hope our listeners are going to appreciate that too. But there is a whole area that the World Health Organization recognizes, a whole disease category called electrohypersensitivity.
I haven't heard of that.
Okay. So there's a growing population that's highly sensitive, not just sensitive to environmental pollutants, but are sensitive to electromagnetic pollution. There's some people who can't walk into a Starbucks because of the Wi-Fi.
I do know that, and I do know. Just recently, these studies have come to my attention. The way that light affects well, I know that some people get migraines if they're under certain lighting, right? But I know that they're finding that it actually affects your brain now.
Blue
too.
light.
Well, blue light as well, which, yeah, I'm starting to buy into the fact that that's terrible, that we're all
We should
looking
wear
at our
these special glasses. I have my kids, my husband, all four of us have our glasses on at night. So 2 hours before you go to sleep. But if you have to be on any type of electronics, protect your eyes, because the blue light affects your melatonin production, in terms of, our hormones, that promote not just sleep, but regeneration of healthy tissues, our insulin growth factor, and our, how we're either accelerating our aging, or we're decelerating, we're aging more rapidly.
And I do love that we're jumping around too here, because there is so much great information. Earlier, you said something about, you didn't call it anti-aging, you called it youthful aging.
Yes.
And I find it so interesting because as I was growing up, you looked at a 50-year-old, and a 50-year-old was old, right? And I don't think it's just a perception thing. I think that 50-year-olds were a lot older 30 years ago. You follow me? I don't know if I'm saying that clearly, but now we're 50, 51, both of us, and I think we're doing pretty darn good. And I think that our peers are doing much better than we were at some point. And so I love the fact that you're talking about youthful aging, not necessarily anti-aging, because we are all going to age. We are all going to die at some point. But that youthful aging of just keeping ourselves and our cells as healthy as possible throughout that process is so critical. Mm-hmm. And thank you for being on the forefront of,
yes.
of
well,
all
thank
of that.
you.
Yeah,
so I really go by this idea that youthful aging is a choice. So what you're doing, Beth, what I'm doing, and how we educate our patients here, I mean, to give them, to know that they need to be the CEO of their own. They're in the driver's seat. They're making those decisions 24/7 in terms of optimizing their health through food, through electrosanitization. If you've never heard that word, it's going to be part of your vocabulary. Hydration, all those things. That's a way in which we can youthfully age. These regenerative therapies are certainly helpful. The whole new world of stem cells is pretty darn cool. And, we're just on the forefront of so many cool ways that we can turn back the clock. But I just want to say something, because I've studied aging quite a bit. So this is my feeling about the current state of health. We are definitely living longer overall than we did, 50 years ago, but not necessarily better. I think the
Agreed.
Quality of life has gone way, way down in many, many ways. There's so much disease. I mean, it's crazy.
And it also seems like, because we know that there is a pill for that we will make bad choices because we can take care of it. I was sitting on my flight down here. I was sitting next to a guy, and he lives in my neighborhood, it turns out. And it's really, really nice. But he said, I have diabetes and I've got neuropathy. And he ate this granola snack that they gave us on the plane. And he said, I know this is going to make my blood sugar go up, but I'll just take my medication. And I just thought, like, don't eat it in the first place, and then you wouldn't have to be on medication. But that's the mentality of the vast majority of people, is that, well, there's just something that I can take for that. So I'll go ahead and have this piece of cake, or I'll have this granola bar that's, got how many grams of sugar in it. And that's just, it's so sad, because that's the route that most people take.
Disease management, and we're not preventatively oriented. Fortunately, there's such a huge growth of complementary medicine and functional medicine, integrative medicine. It's exciting, and I've been part of that big wave, and just growing so much more so, each and every day. I love it.
It seems like there's always a pendulum too. So as we get really, really unhealthy and overweight, and we've got this obesity problem, it seems like there are a lot more people who are studying this sort of thing and who are becoming more accepting of it. Whereas what you're talking about here may have been really out there, kind of woo-woo, 5-10 years ago. People are glomming onto it and understanding it and not being so critical about it. Would you agree?
I would, yes, definitely.
Okay, good.
It's the National Institute of Health has endorsed acupuncture and other forms of complementary medicine. I mean, it's definitely, people want solutions, natural solutions, and a lot of people do not want to take drugs. at all. I mean, there are side effects with most all drugs.
That cause you to take more drugs.
That cause you to, yeah. And it's the sad thing is it's really hit our children big time because those drug companies are after the youngest populations possible, right? And then they get them hooked forever.
It's so
Once
sad.
you get on Ritalin, once you get on a lot of these ADD drugs, then within a few years you're not sleeping, and then you have anxiety issues. The beat goes on. And then you start messing with your chemistry, then your blood sugar levels and your cortisol levels, your stress hormones are kind of bouncing all over the place. And, just having high levels of cortisol, that leads to insulin resistance as well. So then you're on metformin and, it's just it's a journey. So people just don't get sick overnight.
Would you recommend, you mentioned a couple of books about the electromagnetic fields. Are there books maybe for the beginning person, that the person who's just starting out looking into this that you would recommend?
That in terms of the health journey?
Well, yeah, in terms of the health journey and in terms of putting it into practical terms of without being too fear-mongering, because I realize like this is a health talk that we have, but there's a lot of information here that can be kind of scary to someone of like, oh, there's so much I have to do. What, she's telling me to throw out my furniture and, I can't use my regular dishwashing detergent, like I think it can be so overwhelming. Are there practical ways and are there books that maybe you could recommend? And I can put them in the show notes too. And that's what I'll do. I'll make a list of these, but just some things that just wouldn't intimidate people, but would get them started on the path?
It's a good question. Even my book on travel and health is my manifesto of 25 years, like what I consider the most important pearls. Pretty much we've covered everything, and it really is like so simple. If people just cut out wheat, dairy, and sugar in terms of diet and hydrate and mostly a plant-based diet, just that. I said that in less than a minute. Less than a minute. You don't even have to spend 15 hours reading a book. When my patients do just that, oh my gosh.
It takes so much willpower to just stop those things, though. It's crazy.
And you know what? The thing is, the companies out there, they're winning over you. They are so winning. And they're causing you to be sick. I used to think that I had, when I was in college, and we're the same age, right? So you remember we grew up in the carbohydrate, low fat era, and here I am running 50 miles a week as a marathon runner, and I'm like I had more trouble maintaining my weight running 50 miles and eating crappy food than I do doing 8-minute workouts, just for the record. Thinking that I had an eating disorder. Like, what is it? I was never happy with my weight for so many, many years. And now I look back at it and I was compulsive somewhat because I was addicted to foods that were addictive. And they're making them even more addictive for our children.
They're engineering them to be that way.
They are engineered, and then the genetically modified foods are wrecking our digestive system and causing leaky gut. You get leaky gut. You're in the process of a chronic disease. But I'm just saying, so if anyone who really heard what I just said, I mean, you might just think that you have an eating disorder or that you are like a lost cause. But really, like, get back into that driver's seat. Just like really empower yourself to be the one making the choices and not letting these foods that you're addicted to run your life, which I did, even though even healthy foods you can get addicted to, so-called healthy foods.
Well, fruits, because they're so high in sugar.
Right. And, tortilla chips can be very addictive.
Mm-hmm. Especially here in Santa Fe.
Yeah, so I really love to help people that are battling themselves. If they have this internal war going on with their weight, when what they're choosing to eat, like mostly what we crave, whether it's ice cream or it's chips or whatever, mostly what we really crave, we're addicted to, right? And this is where, working with neuroscience, I'm really fascinated with the brain. How can we trump that, right? How do we empower ourselves, like, to not let that food, well, alcohol is a sugar, right? I mean, it's having your wine every single night. There's usually something that you're craving there too. So
just being cognizant of the time I'm spending with you, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I do want to go back to a couple things. Myers cocktail. I don't think we got to what that was.
Okay,
ever.
so a Myers cocktail, that's the number one infusion that we do. And we usually do, instead of a drip, we actually do a push, which is about 50 cc's. We use the best possible ingredients out there, meaning we don't want any preservatives. And we treat a lot of sick people too. But even my athletes, I'm like, I want the best of the best going into anybody's body. And I can say we've done thousands of these over the last 15 years and we never have had a problem. So it's primarily vitamin C, and it is B5 and B6, which is really excellent for adrenals. Most of us could use an adrenal lift. And it also has a little bit of calcium. It has magnesium and B complex, which are really good also for energy. We put a little bit of hydrochloric acid in there, a little bit of B12, and the number one reason people come in for this is like the beginning signs of a cold, allergies. A lot of my athletes pre-event, post-event, asthmatics who feel like they're having an initial onset, or just mostly when people are run down. People who have chronic fatigue, I tend to do 2 a week. I like them to do 2 a week for 4 to 5 weeks. That can do amazing things for chronic virus patterns in the body. So those are like every day. I can't think of a day we don't do a Myers cocktail here.
What's the cost?
Those are $95. We're reasonable. And if we do a drip version, a little bit more expensive.
So my first response to that, and probably listeners too, is like, like $95, so I could just take a couple of vitamin C or whatever and probably get the same effect from it. I know you can't, but I would argue, and you probably would too, because I've seen this myself, and I know just in doing a little bit of research on you, you don't get sick. And I am the same way. I get a little sniffle every once in a while, mainly when I'm traveling, because I know that I'm a little bit run down, or I'm in Delhi and it's polluted and it's terrible. So in the past probably 7 years, it's probably been 7 or 8 years since I've had a cold. I know that I can have a productive day every day because I'm not getting sick. And I think about people who get sick. They allow themselves, quote unquote, to get sick. They just go kind of, again, throw up their hands and say, oh, well, I'll just take the day off of work, and then they lose work or lose time with the family. That, to me, that's worth $95.
Exactly.
It is worth coming in and getting a boost if I can avoid, especially for me because I run my own business, if I can avoid losing a day of work, or losing time on a trip that I'm taking. I don't want to lose my vacation time, any days on my vacation time. So I just I wanted to bring that up and kind of bring up that conversation, because I think it is really important that people need to, if you can catch it at the beginning, if you're aware enough of your body, right, and you can start feeling maybe the little scratch in your throat or the tightness, that's what happens to me. And I think, okay, I've got to go get some echinacea, some vitamin C, and just rest and take some hot water, hot lemon juice, that kind of thing.
That's a great Chinese medicine pearl that you're talking about. Like, there are levels of even a cold, right? You start with a scratchy throat and maybe some body aches, but once it gets into your chest, oh my gosh, it's much more difficult to deal with. And sometimes it moves rapidly. Usually the body's brilliant. If we listen, it will give us those signs. Maybe it's like, oh my God, I'm not usually this fatigued, like I feel right now, or a weird body ache or whatever. We are big. Chinese medicine, you get it in the most superficial stage. So there's herbs you take at the beginning signs. And then if it's deeper, there's different herbs that you take if it's already in your chest. But like my children, they've grown up with a mother who, like my favorite herb ever is oregano oil. Like, it's an emulsified oregano oil. It is phenomenal for viruses, bacteria, parasites, any type of fungal infection, and a lot of sinus infections are really fungal in nature.
Do you take it in water, or just take it?
I don't do it in the oil form. We do it in an emulsified, so it's in a pill form. And I never travel without it. And I mentioned that in my book too. So that's really excellent. So echinacea golden seal, yin chow is a very well-known Chinese herb, and that's to be taken at the very first signs. So within an hour of not feeling right, of knowing like, oh my God, I think I've got the sniffles, or I could be getting sick. You get on it. You don't like when a doctor just says, oh, just go home and rest and eat good food. Forget it. That's not enough, especially in today's world, because the virulent diseases that are out there, holy shit, you don't want to ever not be prepared. Ever.
Yep, I agree.
Anyone who comes over to my house are like, oh my God, Robyn, you've got like a pharmacy right here on your kitchen counter. And I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah, you just want it accessible.
Yes, you've got stuff for digestion. My children know. Like even my husband today on my cell phone, like, will you bring home a bottle of ADP? That's the oregano oil that we use. And so my son, he's studying for exams even today. He has an exam and he's just a little bit run down. So we always have that.
Tell us the name of your book, the full title.
The new title is called Travel with Vitality, 7 Simple Solutions to Sleeping Well, Staying Fit, and Avoiding Illness While on the Road.
Great. And then tell me what you do when you travel, because you have been to over 70 countries.
Over 70 countries.
So first tell me, I want to hear a little bit of that story, but I also want to know what you do to prepare for travel so that you are feeling good and you're not getting sick along the way.
Well, just even the 48 hours before I travel, I really love to boost myself with vitamin C, the ADP. So hydration is really key, because that's one of the biggest issues, especially when you're traveling by air. You get so dehydrated. Most people are just rushing around the 24 hours before that they forget to nourish themselves, and not just drinking water, but consuming a high water content diet. Really key. I also always have a suitcase because I travel so often. It's so when I do not have to check, I have all my goodies. All my little emergency things are in that suitcase. Or I also travel with the same backpack. This is the kind of businesswoman I am. I travel with a backpack, and every little pocket has the essential things. Like if I have worried about sleeping on a plane, I have some melatonin, or, if I, feel like I've got a virus coming on, or if of any sort, lysine is really awesome. People who get cold sores, lysine is pretty amazing. And anybody who tends to have a viral pattern going on in their body, just take that every day. There's I read something recently in terms of the kind of herpes, 80% of people on this planet have that virus. Okay. So lysine is a very good thing. I also, food-wise, don't want to be caught off guard. I always have, and I'm not a big proponent of canned food whatsoever, and certainly do the best possible choices, but sardines. My friends love.
Why sardines?
Well, because they are full of, good minerals, right? It's a good source of calcium and protein. I need the protein. That's really key. And then the oils that you can get with sardines. So something that's really kind of instant gratification. And
what do your seatmates say when you're flying?
Well, you know what? I must say I have been very kind not to do that very much on the airplane.
Yeah, but do it in the airport, in the corner.
And then other forms of jerky that you can take. There are lots of healthy bars. We have my Art brand. We've got some really good choices that are vegan and free of gluten. So what else do I do? But food is the key thing.
It is.
I want coconut oil, but in a concentrated form. So if I just need some healthy fat, nuts, really, really good. So I've got the food thing down.
When I travel, I always carry oatmeal with me, instant oatmeal. I eat the Scotch oats at home, the
30-minute.
Yeah, the 30-minute oats, and I love those. I eat those almost every day, but I always carry a little bag of oatmeal with walnuts and raisins and cinnamon in it. And I've got this bag, and when I get on the plane, I just ask for a cup of hot water, and I just fill my oatmeal up, and then I've got my instant oatmeal there. And then I'm not, I'm not beholden to the crappy airplane food that is served.
And you can put a little bit of coconut oil on that with a little bit of sea salt. Get the mineral. I'm big on minerals.
There you go.
Yeah, it's.
How do you carry
yummy.
your coconut oil?
So actually, right from Trader Joe's, you can get these little packets.
I had no idea.
It's so great. I mean, and it tastes really good. So I just have it in my purse even. Yeah, or in my backpack. I'm also a big fan of Oxalent. Emergency, those little emergency drinks that you can get. The Oxalent's way superior quality, and I know the founder of that. She was a flight attendant, actually. It's quite an amazing story, but really good quality vitamins and minerals in those, and just open those up, put them in your water. Always take a water container, an empty water container, and you can fill up at most water places in airports. Yeah, they're not the best, and there's all kinds of filtration systems. I like Life Straw. I'm a big proponent of that. I love that.
Do you filter your water when you get it from a tap, like a water fountain?
I try to. So if you could just take, you can buy them at REI, but there's one called Life Straw too that you can filter any water through, and it's getting 99% of all the impurities. But also you got to understand that, the plastic industry is pretty bad, and it's very much part of travel, correct? Mm-hmm. Right? And expensive. Mm-hmm. Buying Evian at an airport can be $6 a bottle, right? So I try not to go that route and just bring my own bottle and just fill up.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. There are a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of people get sick when they travel. They do, because they're stressed out going, and they don't nourish themselves properly, and it's kind of like hell, I'm traveling, I'm going to eat whatever I want.
True. And you're dealing with other microbes, but when you get to another country particularly, so you've got the deli belly, or you've got issues in Mexico, and
yes.
People just kind of give into that. I rarely get sick. I can't even tell you a time when I've had a belly problem when I've traveled. Like I don't know why, but
my dear friend who was just visiting, we've traveled, we've been to Haiti, we've been to India, we've been all over. She always gets sick. We've been to so many countries together, and the only time I've ever been sick was returning from India.
Exactly. Yeah. I just figure that happens to me often. I just figure my body is getting readjusted to whatever's in the water here. Why have you been to so many countries? What's taking you there?
Outside of my work, it's my passion. And I really love going to more primitive countries. Like going to Kenya was really awesome.
When were you there?
I was the year I opened up Santa Fe Soul, 2005. And I went with a healer friend with 3 of my patients. And it was quite a spiritual journey too. So spending time with the Maasai tribal people was really awesome. And of course, I'm a runner, and I'm not going to miss a day of running, right? And they're running barefoot, and I'm running with my running shoes. And I learned, so this is kind of early on too, where I learned about the importance of earthing. Again, the antidote to electromagnetic pollution. People who walk barefoot, there's nothing better than walking in, grass after a rain. All those negative electrons, which help that are antidote to all the oxidative rusting, so to speak, that's going on in our body. So I learned a lot of lessons before. I didn't have the consciousness and the awareness that I have now. When I was there, but they were teaching me, those tribal people were teaching me about the importance of being barefoot and being connected to the earth.
I'm looking at putting together a running trip to Kenya with the Maasai.
Oh,
so
cool.
I'll keep you posted on that.
Absolutely.
Keep the listeners posted on that.
I didn't get to Kilimanjaro. I'd like to get there someday.
Oh, come. We just hiked it in January. We did Kilimanjaro and a safari.
Oh, my gosh.
And then we're going back in 2019 to do Kili again as a group tour. Kili, and then a safari, and then gorilla trekking.
No, these are with the women groups?
No, that's actually co-ed. We do those co-ed.
Oh,
the ones that are the trekking ones, I'm just never quite sure I can fill it with a completely women-only tour, so we do co-ed trips on that, and then my husband gets to go, and he'd be pretty bummed if he got left behind on those.
So to answer that question further, I love exploring and learning about other cultures. I don't like to read about them in books. I like to go be in them. Like when my husband and I got married, we went to Bali. And that was really cool.
That's great.
Learning about the culture there.
And there's a lot of healers and shamans and practitioners there,
absolutely.
too.
Yeah. And so it's hard for me, like, going to a country that I've already been to. I have been to Costa Rica 3 times. I've been to Peru twice. I have to say my favorite country is Peru. I love Peru. I mean,
Machu Picchu?
Machu Picchu,
yeah.
I've been there twice. 2
great.
Extraordinary experiences. And I love to experiment with things. And I did plant medicine there. That was more for kind of spiritual reasons. And also the creation of Santa Fe Soul. I needed to get some direction and what the why behind why this center? Why do we need to have these? It was this center, this creation, this co-creation is so much bigger than me. I would never. It was not a checklist off my life list. Living.
Did you meet with shamans there? Or
I did.
You didn't do ayahuasca?
I did.
Oh, you did.
I did.
Oh, interesting.
So
one trip or two. The
I've been
ayahuasca.
only the first trip. I did the ayahuasca, but I went there for that reason. I never have been a so-called recreational drug person. I mean, early on in life, never ever really appealed to me. But I was really attracted to the plant medicine because this plant medicine's from Mother Earth. Ayahuasca is from the earth. And the fact that it's used to help people through challenging exploratory times. To me, it was not so much a challenging time. It was like, all right, I'm building this center. I'm kind of scared. Like, what's it all about? And I got so many unbelievable messages through those two journeys, ayahuasca and San Pedro. I did both to help me. We hadn't even built the structure of this building when I went there in 2004, but it was already being planned and designed.
So it was a good experience for you?
It was a positive, very, very positive experience, especially the San Pedro, because I was able to see the necessity for centers like Santa Fe Soul. In a time where there's so much health crises going on and so much dis-ease, and hospitals are places where people go and get sick and die, right? They're emergency purposes, but it's also pathogens, full of pathogens. So we wanted to create a place that represents all healing, all spiritual traditions. I love going to places where it's earth-based medicine still, which we're fortunately getting back to. Even if it's in a supplement form, we're still saying, how can I capture nature? And even pharmaceuticals, for that matter, are looking at how they can mimic nature too, but adding all kinds of crapola too. I am not totally against at all. I am so grateful for emergency medicine. Thank God.
Right. You're not recommending anyone avoid that.
No.
It's just that there's other ways to help.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. There's a purpose for our pharmaceuticals too. Some of them.
Did we need to go back to the 80% food decision?
I think I got back. I wanted to go back to that because I want to say that the emotional body is even more powerful than all the people that are putting. I mean, I can have the healthiest person who's never put a piece of crap in their body for 2 years, but they're so obsessed. They're so that's causing breakdown. Just being so acidic in their controlling ways, and people that are sitting on these emotional bombs, that they haven't processed. Maybe it's an abortion, or it was being abused when they were 10 years old and not telling anybody, the more it just repressed, those repressed memories need to come out. I mean, the physical body needs to be flowing rather than having all these kind of mysterious things emerging because of not processing things.
Great.
And I don't believe in overprocessing either. I think we overprocess in this country.
Yes, we do.
So we need like these hacks, these biohacks to move you through it in 28 days as opposed to 28 years.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. So as we wrap up here, I have a few questions for you. So I'm going to be running a marathon in about a month. I won't have access to your facility here. Let's just say that I have limited access to facilities in Seattle. There's probably something similar in Seattle, but I'm not sure. But if I'm a person who doesn't have that kind of access, what would you recommend for me in the coming 4 weeks? What kind of protocol? Or even if I do have access to something that's here, what would you say? Oh yeah, Beth, you need to do this to really up your game. Like this is something solid that you can do in the next 4 weeks to get you to your goal pace race.
Okay, well, so you're in taper mode right now. Have you done your 20-miler yet?
Yeah, I'm a little odd like that. I've been doing 22 miles on Sundays. I do a long run.
Every Sunday?
Not quite every, but I'll do 22 and I'll do 18 and then I'll do 22 again.
And how do you feel after those?
I feel great.
You don't feel sore and lactic acid the next day?
No, I don't.
Wow.
I'm building up to a 50 miler. And so I did a double. I did a 31 miler, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. I did a full marathon the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So I did 2 back-to-backs. And I'm done with my 22 mile, and I come home and I say, hey, John, let's go for a walk now. Let me do a little active recovery. And, I'm not having issues. I feel really good.
Wow, you're a rare bird, my dear. I think that's so fantastic that you recover that well. After like some of those long runs, I would definitely be a little achy. So I think it's because you're mostly vegan, right? And you're proof that you don't have to have an animal-based diet to be a marathoner. And what you're also showing is that you have a pretty alkaline diet. It's a real more acidic diet that can actually cause you to produce even more lactic acid. So at this point, I would up my minerals. I think that would be really important. Certainly vitamin C would be important. Glutathione is like the master antioxidant. Love glutathione. It sounds like, you've already have the water-rich diet. I mean, that's just really key. So that's awesome. I think it sounds like you're doing mostly, but I do believe in the taper. If you're not going to do it a month out, maybe 2 weeks before.
Definitely, yeah.
But time, does it matter? Do you care how fast you run your marathon?
I'm trying to qualify for Boston.
Oh, so what is that for you?
For me, it's under 4 hours. So there's this interesting thing where I've read that when you start running, you have 15 years of improvement, and then you start declining. And so I started a few years ago running. So I have this theory that I believe this, that I still have another probably 11 years of improvement. And as I continue to improve and age, then the Boston qualifying time is going to get longer, meaning my times are going to get better, and my Boston qualifying time is going to get higher. So now it's 4 hours, next, in a couple of years, it'll be 4:10. So there's going to be this convergence. So if not this year, there will be a time when I get to qualify.
I'd have to say there's some truth to that. I started running marathons when I was 15, but right around in my 30s, my early 30s, that was my peak. So my first marathon was a 3:58. And then it took a bit to get my qualifying time. In my 30s, I had to run a 3:40. And I finally did that in the Chicago Marathon.
Oh, great.
And then what was really awesome is I qualified. And so it was the 100th running of the Boston Marathon in 1996. That was like a dream come true. So I was an official runner. I ran that marathon as a bandit 2 years.
Yeah,
I just love the history of the Boston Marathon and the energy. Yeah. So I think that it sounds like you do have. It's interesting though, because it's a different hormonal picture for a 50-year-old woman just starting as opposed to a woman in her 20s or 30s running. So it's going to be interesting to track you and see how you do over these next 10 or 15 years. It's certainly, I think you will qualify. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and it's worth qualifying for. It's fun.
I bet. Yeah.
It's so cool.
I look forward to it.
So I think it sounds like you're doing most everything. And I'd have to look at for me, if I were your doctor, I'd want to look at your blood work right now. I'd love to see where your testosterone levels are, your free testosterone, your DHEA levels, your progesterone, your estrogen. Even though you're feeling so fantastic, it can blindside you too. Because it's exertion and it's a little wear and tear on your body too. And just to see how well you're doing on that front of food and supplementation.
Well, I'll schedule an appointment with you.
Yes.
Along those lines, I've been thinking about getting heavy metals testing for myself. And when I mentioned it to my doctor, who's a naturopath in Seattle, she said, well, do you have any symptoms? And I said, no, I don't. But I've just heard from several people, like in the podcasting world, probably elite, runners, that kind of thing, that it's a good thing to have checked out. Would you recommend that? I mean, it can be quite costly. I'm trying to figure out through my insurance company. It could be upwards of like $450 for me to get the range of tests that I'm looking at. Would you recommend it for somebody who's not necessarily feeling tired?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, for people, sometimes you're looking for symptoms. If someone has like thyroid issues and you want to get to the root of why they have their thyroid problem, and people with cardiovascular issues, I just think that in functional medicine, in integrative medicine, you kind of want to know what your borderline is. But we do it for $120. And so we do a 6-hour urine test that you take something that's going to help bring it out of your body, a challenge. So I'm wondering why it's so expensive.
Well, it's the paperwork that I have from the company who actually runs it, and what they say, they kind of list out the potential for this amount. The potential, the potential amount for this set of testing, the potential amount for this set of testing. And I'm assuming that my insurance company isn't going to cover it.
Usually not.
Okay. Yeah.
But you can do it, just so for listeners to know, you can do it for about $120. But then you have to think about the time it takes a doctor to review it and decide what you need to do. And we do as much oral chelation as possible. And then we also do IV therapies as well.
I'll have to make a special trip down here. Another reason to come down.
Yes.
back to Santa Fe.
But even the healthiest of healthy people that feel absolutely fine can have high levels of mercury, high levels of lead.
To me, it's like I was pescatarian for a very long time before I went more the total vegan route. And I just think all the salmon that I ate all those years, all the potential there, and tuna, of course.
So now how are you getting your protein?
How am I getting protein?
And running 30 miles.
Tempeh, tofu, nuts, like a protein shake. I do a pea-based protein powder in a smoothie not every day. Every day that I run or I exercise. I have kind of figured out that I need about 80 grams of protein a day. And I've played with this a lot. So I used to have more. I used to work out more, doing really strenuous like P90X workouts. Mm-hmm. And I used to eat Chobani yogurts, which were great. And I was getting 120 grams of protein a day. Mm-hmm. And pulled that stuff out. And on days where I don't have the protein, or I go stretches where I don't have as much protein and it's more carbs, I don't feel as good. I know it. And so when I get that protein back in, then I feel good again.
Mm-hmm. That's good. And you get enough good fat?
Get enough good fat.
And from
avocado on toast and nuts and that kind of thing.
And what about iron? Where are you getting your iron? I think for a woman running that much,
I take a supplement.
Okay, good.
But I'm doing lots of leafy greens also.
Good.
And I do regular testing through my doctor for my labs. My cholesterol went down 60 points. I've always been kind of on the cusp, and they've all said, "Oh, you've got high cholesterol in your family. You should consider taking meds." My cholesterol has been as high as 240. And when I went mostly vegan, plant-based, dropped to 160.
How's your HDL? That's a good cholesterol, the high-density lipoprotein.
Good. I can't recall what it is offhand, but I know that it's good.
Yeah, and it's important for cholesterol not to go too low because that's how we produce our hormones. So I'm a big advocate of that. And there is a small percentage of the population that with a certain cardiac profile really should be more plant-based and not eat red meat at all. I have a patient like that too.
So as we wrap up, 2 quick things. How do you manage it all? And staying healthy. But you are juggling a lot. You're traveling, like you haven't gone through where have you traveled, but I know that you've traveled to a lot of countries. You're traveling a lot. You've got 2 kids. You're running a huge business here. You have how many practitioners here? How many?
I've got about 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
We've got a different model now. Yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot.
How do you?
And in an online world too. So my self-care revolution, and then my book came out 2 years ago, and this whole amplified regenerative message, like how to live amplified in today's world. That's really what I'm about right now. So how do I do it? I believe just these simple things. I mean, from hydration to exercising at least 3 or 4 days a week. It's just not negotiable. And when I've got it down, I mean, people are like, "Oh, but you're a marathon runner," but I'm not now. I am so not there. I do 10-minute workouts 3 or 4 days a week, and kettlebell maybe a little bit longer. And I diet. I mean, I just can't. I do not veer off. Every once in a while, I don't like cake. I don't like crap very much. I don't feel good. I cannot move at this level with making bad food choices. I can't even drink alcohol very much. And if I do, I try to put it through the structuring water device that will make it more wet and more less toxic to my system. I'll tell you what it is more than anything. It's just my passion and my care. Still 25 years later, I love what I do. You're right. I've never missed a day of work because of being sick. And I can be on the edge. I can definitely, and I know when I can get burnt out. I still can. And I know that's when I need to like not do as much travel as I've been doing, especially this year. 2015 and 2016 they were so nonstop for me. And I think turning 50 was kind of with a different consciousness going into this decade of just wanting to be here now more and not be still a very full on life. And having 2 teenage kids that are going to be out of the house very soon, I'm like, okay, Mama Bear. I like spending all day Saturday with my daughter was so sweet, and that hasn't happened a whole lot in her life. Yeah, I think when you know you're
healthy, so it's a healthy lifestyle and the passion for what you
why.
do.
When you know your why, it's like it's amazing what you'll get up for, even if you're sleep deprived, and even if as much as you try to avoid that. And the supplements I take too are really important, to keep my body fortified and moving and grooving in the way that I want to.
I had a job that I hated. I was making great money, but I hated that job, and it required that I was in the office by 7, and there was a commute. So I would have to get up at 5:15 every morning, and I just hated it. I could not get myself out of bed. I'd have to prepare the coffee the night before in advance just so that I could get up and just put the coffee on and, get out the door. Now that I love what I do, I am up before 5. I can wake up no problem. And I'm one of those people who does bounce out of bed and I'm just ready for the day. So it really is about that why and that purpose and finding something that you enjoy, because then you have the energy for it.
That's so great.
Yeah. But you are juggling a lot. You have to be very organized.
Tired, for sure. I definitely do sometimes. But yeah, I think it's living this life day to day on your terms. Like I am definitely in the driver's seat of my health. I do not take prescription medicine at all.
You mentioned a thyroid medication.
Yeah,
but that's something natural?
I mean, it's a natural form of natural thyroid, and I do take a little bit of testosterone at my age. You don't take anything,
nope.
any? I'd love to see how that is. Yeah, I think the more than anything is just knowing your why and being excited about getting up in the morning and doing the work that you do.
So for the Be Bold podcast, answer me this riddle. What does being bold mean to you?
Being bold is being a badass at 50, almost 52. Being bold is like being courageous and just taking on lofty things that most people would not want to be doing at this stage. Like even, doing what I still do is pretty bold. I just, I'm trying to think, what's like my next big thing. Honestly, I just feel really grateful at my age. I've done most everything I've ever wanted to do, which is quite amazing. Other than seeing about another 70 countries I haven't been to.
Right, but then there's always something else. But that's a good thing, right? There must be other things that you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's another book in me too. I mean, climbing Kilimanjaro, I definitely want to do. I want to go to South Africa. There's a lot of the world I want to see. That's really when it comes to my. I love the idea of not calling it a bucket list, but what is your life living list? Mm-hmm. There's still a lot left to do. I've jumped out of planes. I've been bungee jumping. I mean, just any of those like really big things. I've done them. Yeah.
I'm right with you there with the bucket list. I do not like that term because it implies that you're going to die and that there's things that you have to do, before you die. And I just think, no, there's things that you have to do while you're living. You have to turn that term around and make it a living list.
Right.
Much more exciting that way. Is there anything that you'd like to add that we didn't cover today? We covered a lot. We bounced around.
We sure did. Just that idea that was kind of like a tagline for our self-care revolution, that for everyone listening, that to make self-care a way of life and not an event. Like, do we really have to get cancer to wake up to this precious life that we're living? Right. And also to, in the words of one of my good friends, well-known, Greg Braden, expand your resiliency. As you get older, don't contract and wither away, right? You
Have a bigger life.
Yeah. Have a bigger life, and, don't sweat the small stuff. OMG.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much stuff that we worry about that causes this accelerated aging, and I'd rather people live amplified, as get, like you talked about earlier before we went online. You want to run a marathon at 95.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, where do I want to? I think I want to be, my dream really, in a few years, my kids are going to be in college. I'd like to take my work on the road. I'd like to be able to live in different parts of the world and, maybe, give free health care, or be able, I can do acupuncture anywhere. And I have certainly contributed my healing skills all over the world. So yeah, to live in different parts of the world and be able to do my medicine without the responsibility that I have right now. That's kind of where I'm heading. Woohoo.
Well, good luck. Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
we'll stay apprised of that. We'll
Yes.
keep up to date on it. Robyn, thank you so much for your time.
What a pleasure.
Today. This
I've
is
loved
just
it.
a great conversation,
So
and I've
fun.
learned so much, and I'm so excited to dive in a little bit more into things that you've mentioned throughout the program and our conversation. And I'm serious. I'll have to book another trip down here just to
Yes.
spend a full day here.
Yes. And if anyone listening, my website is robynbenson.com. Very simple.
Great. So you've got your website, your book.
ROBYN Benson.com. And then my center is santafesoul.com.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So we'll find you online. Again, we'll add those to the show notes. Are you on social media at all?
I am. Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay. Where do we find you on Instagram, Twitter?
Well, yeah, I'm more Facebook.
Okay, Facebook.
I'm more of a Facebook. I guess I'm a little bit behind the times on Twitter and Instagram. My daughter is trying to teach me, but somehow, and I'm a real personal person. So people, Robyn Benson, DOM, I'm definitely on. I have my Facebook fan page, and I have my travel Facebook page as well. So if people can follow me there.
We'll find you there.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Thanks again. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
This has been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Love it.
For good reason, you'll see that the show notes for this episode are quite robust. There was so much information here that I had a difficult time taking it all in myself. But listening to her really does make me want to live a more amplified life, as she puts it, to really just take things to the next level. As a side note, I'm going to be running the Foot Traffic Flat Marathon on Sauvie Island on July 4th. That's near Portland, Oregon. And I'm going to attempt to qualify for the Boston Marathon on that one. For my age group, it means I've got to run under 4 hours. So give me a shout out and wish me luck. I'm really going to be pushing myself on that one, and I really took to heart much of what Robyn said and will put into practice her suggestions so I can make sure I'm successful on that. A reminder that if you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, and write a review. Those reviews really do help the podcast get more exposure, and it'll ultimately help us grow our Be Bold community. I bet you know a few people in your world who would also enjoy today's conversation and this podcast in general, so I encourage you to please share. You can find out more about me by visiting Wanderlust and Lipstick, as well as Wander Tours, where you'll see the tours I lead around the world, as well as our culinary tours in Santa Fe, and that's where Robyn Benson can be found, New Orleans, and also here in Seattle. I encourage you to also check out the Wonder World Foundation, the nonprofit I founded to help women and children in developing countries. I'll put links to all those sites in the show notes. And you can find those on wanderlustandlipstick.com/podcast. Sign up for my newsletter on the Wanderlust and Lipstick site, and you'll receive a free download on how to get more out of your travels. You can friend me on Facebook, and I'm WanderGal on Instagram. If you know of any high-performing, adventurous, philanthropic women whom you think might be a good guest, shoot me a note or leave a comment. And finally, the ladies can join us on our Be Bold Facebook group. That's where you'll find our growing community. It's where we share goals, we talk about our setbacks, and where you can find words of encouragement and inspiration from others. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Be Bold podcast. Until next time, be bold.